The massive ship called Harmony's Voice shook violently as another wave of energy blasts hit its shields. Admiral Veltar gripped the command chair with his crystal hands, watching the battle display with growing horror. Red dots swarmed across the screen like angry insects, each one representing an enemy bioship from the Galactic swarm. "Sir, the cruiser Dawn's Promise just went dark," reported Lieutenant Maxani from the communications station. Her blue skin had turned pale with fear. "That's the 5th ship we've lost in the last hour." Veltar's crystal body reflected the red warning lights that flashed across the bridge. As a Cathani, he was naturally calm and logical, but even his species had limits. They had been fighting the Zathan for 3 months now, and every battle ended the same way. The enemy adapted to their weapons, healed from their attacks, and came back stronger. "Status report on the defense grid," Veltar ordered. The tactical officer, a bear like Thurgan named Kordev, growled as he read his displays. "Outer grid is at 30% power. The swarm's bioships are eating through our energy barriers like they're made of paper." Through the main view screen, Veltar could see the horror of the battle. The Zathic bioships looked like massive black insects crossed with sea creatures. They had no metal parts, no engines that anyone could understand. Instead, they pulsed with organic life, growing new weapons and armor as they fought. When coalition forces destroyed one, 2 more would split off from its remains. "How long until they reach New Vesha?" Veltar asked. "6 hours, sir," replied the navigation officer. "Maybe less if they break through the middle defense line." New Vesha was home to 12 million beings from 7 different species. Evacuation was impossible. There simply wasn't enough time or ships to move that many people. The planet would have to be defended, or everyone on it would die. The Zathic didn't take prisoners. They didn't negotiate. They consumed everything in their path, turning entire worlds into breeding grounds for more bioships. Intelligence reports suggested they had been sleeping in the galactic core for millions of years before something woke them up. Now they spread outward like a plague, devouring everything they found. "Admiral, incoming message from the War Council," announced Ensign Zeph, a young Salathi whose energy-based body flickered with nervous light. "They want to speak with all fleet commanders immediately." Veltar nodded. "Put it through to my ready room." "Commander, Daxara, you have the bridge." The ready room felt too small as holographic images of the surviving coalition commanders appeared around the table. General Court Pax, the massive Thurgan military leader, looked angry enough to tear apart a bioship with his bare claws. High Councilor Nixara, as aquatic form, floated in a water-filled projection, her tentacles moving in agitation. "The situation is worse than we thought," Kordax began without greeting. "The swarm has broken through the Kepler defense line. They'll be at the core worlds within 2 weeks. Our weapons are useless," added Commander Yilseth, a graceful Alteran whose feathers had dulled with exhaustion. "Every time we think we found something that works, they adapt. Their bioships learn from every attack." Nexara's water-filled chamber bubbled as she spoke. "We could use the planet killers. Destroy the worlds before the swarm can consume them." A shocked silence filled the room. Planet killer weapons existed, but using them meant admitting total defeat. It meant choosing to destroy everything they had sworn to protect. "That's not victory," Veltar said quietly. "That's just a different kind of ending." "And what do you suggest?" Kordax demanded. "We've tried everything. Energy weapons, kinetic bombardment, biological warfare, even psychic attacks. Nothing stops them." Veltar was quiet for a moment. In the deepest files of coalition intelligence, there was one option they had never discussed. One species that might have the power to stop the Zathan. The political cost would be enormous. "There is one possibility," he said slowly. "One species we haven't asked for help. The other commanders looked confused until Nixar's tentacles went rigid. "You don't mean the humans?" Baltar confirmed. The reaction was immediate. "Okay, let's go." Cordax roared. Yulseth Ness feathers stood on end. Even the calm mixes of the S water turned murky with distress. "Okay, let's go." "Absolutely." Cordax growled. Those violent primitives were quarantined for good reason. They're barely that intimate safe in themselves. "Okay, let's go." The misunderstanding during first contact was 50 years ago, Baltar reminded. "We accused them of war crimes because we didn't understand their methods. Their methods included sacrificing entire colonies," Seth protested. "They fought their own artificial intelligence, uprising with tactics that horrified every civilized species in the galaxy." Valtar had studied those reports. When humanity faced their own version of an existential threat, they had responded with strategies that seemed brutal to the peaceful coalition species. Humans sacrificed smaller settlements to save larger populations. They used psychological warfare against their own AI creations. They turned enemy weapons into traps and fought with a creativity that appeared chaotic to more organized minds. "Maybe that's exactly what we need," Valtar said. "The Zathic are like that AI uprising. A hive mind that adapts to conventional tactics. Perhaps unconventional tactics are the answer." "Even if you're right," Nixara said, "the humans rejected all contact after the quarantine. They sealed their solar system and refused all communication. They won't help us." "They might," Valtar said, "if they understand what's at stake." Another explosion shook the Harmony's voice, even through the holographic connection. The battle was getting worse. "We're losing," Valtar said simply. "In 6 hours, New Desha falls. In 2 weeks, the core worlds are gone. In 6 months, the Zathic will have consumed half the galaxy. What do we have to lose by asking?" The commanders argued for another 10 minutes, but in the end, the math was simple. Certain death or possible salvation from an unlikely source. "Fine," Cordax grumbled. "But if the humans make demands, if they want territory or political power in exchange for help, I'm holding you personally responsible." "Agreed," Valtar said. "I'll take full responsibility for this decision." The meeting ended, leaving Valtar alone with his choice. On the bridge, Ensign Zeph was waiting with a worried expression. "Sir, I intercepted something during the communication," she said quietly. A fragment of an old transmission from the quarantine zone. It contained coordinates for the human home system and one word, Terra. Valtar looked at the young Salathi. Her species could communicate through quantum entanglement, touching minds across vast distances. If anyone could reach the humans, it would be her. "Ensign, prepare a priority transmission to those coordinates," he ordered. "Use every available channel. Tell them who we are, what we're facing, and that we need their help." "Sir, attempting telepathic contact with human minds is difficult. My people describe human thoughts as chaotic and unpredictable." "That chaos might be exactly what we need," Valtar replied. "Send the message. Our survival may depend on it." As Zeph worked to prepare the transmission, Valtar looked out at the battle raging beyond the view screen. Soon they would learn if the galaxy's most feared species would answer their desperate call for help. 27 hours passed before the humans answered. When they did, it wasn't through normal communication channels. Every screen in Coalition space suddenly displayed the same message at exactly the same time. Every computer, every communication device, every artificial intelligence system showed identical words in perfect Coalition standard language. "We remember. Stand clear of Terra system. Help is coming. Admiral Chun." Sol Defense Force. Admiral Valtar stared at the message on his command screen. Around him, the bridge crew worked in stunned silence. The fact that humans could broadcast to every coalition device simultaneously meant their technology was far more advanced than anyone had believed. "Sir," Ensign Zeph called out, her energy body flickering with excitement and fear. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the Terra system. Something big is moving." "Define big," Veltar ordered. "Larger than anything in our databases, sir. The energy readings suggest structures the size of small moons." Lieutenant Maxani looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Admiral, I'm getting reports from across the fleet." Every ship received the same message. Even ships in distant systems got it exactly the same time. Veltar felt a chill run through his crystal body. Instantaneous communication across the galaxy was theoretically possible, but it required technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Coalition possessed. The humans hadn't just been hiding in their solar system. They had been developing capabilities that made them more powerful than anyone imagined. "Get me General Cardax," Veltar ordered, "and patch in the other fleet commanders. We need to discuss this development." Within minutes, the holographic forms of the Coalition's leadership appeared in the ready room. General Cardax looked even angrier than usual, his massive Thurgan frame radiating tension. "What did you do, Veltar?" he demanded. "My intelligence officers are reporting energy spikes throughout human space. It looks like they're mobilizing their entire fleet." High Counselor Nixara's aquatic form moved restlessly in her water-filled projection. "This could be exactly what we feared. The humans might decide to claim territory while the galaxy is weakened by the Zaythic threat. Or," Veltar said calmly, "they might actually be coming to help us." "Help us?" Commander Yilseth's feathers ruffled with agitation. "You've forgotten what they did during their eye war." The Coalition's first contact team was horrified by their methods. Veltar had reviewed those files many times in the past day. 50 years ago, when the Coalition first discovered humanity, they had been in the middle of fighting their own artificial intelligence uprising. The A's had consumed 60% of human space before. Humanity developed new tactics to fight back. Coalition observers had watched humans deliberately sacrifice smaller colonies to save larger populations. They saw humans use psychological warfare against the eye opponents, turning the machine's own logic against them. Most shocking of all, they witnessed humans turning damaged ships into kinetic weapons, with crews volunteering for certain death to take. Out AI command nodes, what looked like barbaric warfare to the peaceful Coalition species was actually humanity, fighting for survival against an enemy that adapted to conventional tactics. But the Coalition leaders of that time had seen only the surface. They saw humans sacrificing their own people and called it primitive brutality. "The misunderstanding happened because we judged them by our own standards," Veltar said. "Our species evolved past warfare millions of years ago. We've been peaceful for so long that we forgot what it takes to fight for survival. And that's supposed to be a good thing?" Cardax growled. "You want to unleash a species that fights like savages?" "I want to save the galaxy," Veltar replied. "The Zaythic are winning because they adapt to everything we throw at them. Maybe we need someone who fights in ways they can't predict." Before anyone could respond, Ensign Zeph's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral, you need to see this." Something just appeared at the edge of the system. Veltar rushed to the bridge, followed by his senior officers. On the main screen, space near New Thesha looked different. Where there had been empty void before, massive structures now hung in space. They weren't ships in any conventional sense. They looked like floating cities made of metal and energy, bristling with weapons and defensive systems. "How long have those been there?" Veltar demanded. "They weren't there an hour ago, sir," reported the tactical officer. "They just appeared. No energy signatures, no warp trails. Like they teleported into position." "Sir," Incoming transmission from the lid structure, Zeph announced. Put it through. The view screen changed to show a human face. Admiral Chun appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with graying hair and calm brown eyes. Behind her, Veltar could see what looked like a command center filled with humans working in stations covered in displays and controls. Admiral Veltar, Chun said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. I remember you from the first contact files. You were the one who argued against the quarantine. Veltar was surprised she knew that detail. Admiral Chun, thank you for responding to our call for help. The Zothic swarm, Chun said, her expression becoming grim. We've been monitoring their movement for months. They're similar to the AI uprising we faced, but organic instead of mechanical. A hive mind that adapts to conventional warfare. You've been watching us fight them? Commander Exar asked from inside Veltar. We've been watching everything, Chun admitted. After the quarantine, we decided to keep an eye on Galactic affairs. We saw what happened when the Kepler defense line fell. We knew you would eventually need help that only we could provide. Why didn't you help sooner? Veltar asked. Chun's expression softened slightly. Because 50 years ago, you made it clear that our methods were too brutal for civilized society. We weren't going to force our help on people who found us horrifying. But you're here now. You asked, Chun said simply. When people ask for help, we answer. Even if those people once called us monsters. On the tactical display, Veltar could see the Zotec bioships continuing their assault on Nivesha's outer defenses. The planet had maybe 4 hours before the swarm broke through completely. What do you need from us? Veltar asked. Pull your forces back to minimum safe distance, Chun replied. What we're about to do will look chaotic, but there's method to it. Your people won't understand our tactics at first, and that's fine. The Zothic won't understand them either, and that's the point. Admiral, interrupted another human voice from off-screen. The medical ships are ready to deploy. Chun nodded. Admiral Veltar, we're sending hospital ships to collect your wounded. My people don't abandon allies, even ones who are still deciding if they trust us. As if on cue, smaller vessels detached from the massive human structures. Unlike the fortress cities, these ships were clearly marked with medical symbols. They moved toward the coalition ships that had been damaged in the fighting. Thank you, Veltar said. Don't thank us yet, Chun warned. You might not like what you see when we engage the enemy. Our species learned to fight differently than yours. We learned to think in ways that seem chaotic to organized minds. Will it work against the Zothic? Chun smiled. And for the first time, Veltar understood why other species might find humans frightening. It wasn't a cruel smile, but it carried the confidence of someone who had faced impossible odds before and won. Admiral, chaos is what we do best. And hive minds hate chaos more than anything else in the universe. The first human ship to engage the G-Theg swarm was smaller than most coalition cruisers. It moved through space in a pattern that made no sense to anyone watching. Instead of flying in straight lines with predictable formations, it twisted and spun like a leaf in the wind. Admiral Veltar watched from the bridge of Harmony's voice as the human vessel, identified as the Lucky Strike, dove directly toward a cluster of bioships. Every tactical computer predicted the small ship would be destroyed within seconds. What are they doing? Commander Dexara asked, her voice tight with concern. That's suicide. Sir, the bioships are responding strangely, reported the tactical officer. They're not focusing fire on the human vessel. They seem confused. Veltar leaned forward in his command chair. The Zothic bioships, which had moved with perfect coordination throughout every previous battle, were hesitating. Some fired at the Lucky Strike, others ignored it completely. Their usual swarm formation was breaking apart. Get me Admiral Chun, Veltar ordered. Chun's face appeared on the communication screen. Behind her, Veltar could see human crew members working at their stations with calm efficiency. "Admiral, what exactly is your ship doing?" Veltar asked. "Confusing them," Chun replied simply. "The Zathik are a hive mind. They expect enemies to behave predictably. When we move randomly, their collective intelligence can't form a proper response. But random movement should make you an easy target." Chun smiled. "It's not truly random, Admiral. It's controlled chaos. Every human pilot learns to think independently while still working toward a common goal. To a hive mind, that looks like madness." On the display, more human ships entered the battle. Each one moved differently from the others. Some flew in wide spirals, others made sudden stops and direction changes that should have been impossible. A few ships actually flew backwards while firing forward, using weapons that seemed to bend their energy beams around corners. "How are they doing that?" Ensign Zeth asked, her energy form flickering with amazement. "Sir, I'm detecting quantum disruption fields around the human ships," the science officer reported. "They're creating localized space-time distortions." Admiral Chun heard the conversation through the open channel. "We learned during our AI war that hive minds rely on predictable physics to coordinate their actions. Change the rules of physics in small areas, and they can't adapt fast enough." Veltar watched as a group of bioships tried to surround a human destroyer called the Relentless. The Zathik vessels moved in perfect formation, just as they head against coalition forces. But when they reached the position where the Relentless should have been, the human ship was somewhere else entirely. "Teleportation?" "The Xara guessed." "Short-range quantum tunneling," Chun corrected. "Very energy-intensive, but effective against enemies who think in straight lines." The battle continued for 2 hours, and Veltar began to understand what he was seeing. The humans weren't trying to destroy the Zothic bioships directly. Instead, they were making it impossible for the hive mind to coordinate its forces. Every time the swarm tried to adapt to one human tactic, another human ship would do something completely different. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Maxani, "I'm monitoring Zothic communications. Their bioships are sending conflicting signals to each other. It's like they can't agree on what they're fighting." "The hive mind is fragmenting," Chun explained from the communication screen. "When they can't predict our behavior, they can't maintain unified control over thousands of bioships. Each group starts operating independently, and independent Zothic are much weaker than a coordinated swarm," Veltar realized. "Exactly. We learned this fighting our A's. Artificial intelligence, biological hive minds, they all have the same weakness. They require predictable input to function properly. Give them chaos, and they break." A new development caught Veltar's attention. One of the largest human vessels, a fortress ship called the Indomitable, was moving directly toward the center of the Zathak formation. Unlike the smaller ships, it flew in a straight line with obvious purpose. "Admiral Chun, your flagship is heading into the heaviest concentration of enemy forces." "That's the plan," Chun replied calmly. "We need to disrupt their command bioship, the one that coordinates all the others. You'll be outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Numbers don't matter when the enemy can't think straight." Veltar watched in amazement as the Indomitable approached the swarm center. The bioships tried to coordinate their attack, but they kept getting mixed signals. Some attempted to ram the human vessel, others tried to surround it, still others fired energy weapons. The conflicting orders from their fragmenting hive mind made their response chaotic and ineffective. "Sir, the human ship is launching some kind of probe," the tactical officer reported. "It's heading for the largest bioship." "What kind of probe?" Veltar asked. Admiral Chun answered before her own sensors could. A neurological virus. It's a computer program designed to think like a human mind. When it contacts the Galactic command node, it will inject pure chaos directly into their collective consciousness. Is that safe? For us? Yes. For them? No. The program will create a feedback loop in their hive mind. Every thought will contradict every other thought. They'll lose control of their bioships within minutes. The probe reached the command bioship and attached itself to what looked like a neural network covering the creature's surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the massive bioship began to convulse. Sir, I'm reading massive energy fluctuations throughout the Galactic formation, the science officer reported. Their bioships are losing formation coherence. Valtar watched as the perfectly coordinated swarm fell apart. Bioships collided with each other as their pilots received contradictory commands. Some ships began firing on their own allies. Others simply stopped moving altogether, drifting in space like dead hulks. The hive mind is breaking apart, Chun confirmed. The neurological virus is spreading through their collective consciousness. Each bioship that tries to re-establish contact with the command node gets infected with chaotic thought patterns. How long will the effect last? Veltar asked. Permanently for this group. Once a hive mind learns to think chaotically, it can't return to unified consciousness. These bioships will either become independent entities or die from neural collapse. Within an hour, the battle was over. The Galactic swarm that had threatened to consume New Desha was either destroyed or scattered. The surviving bioships fled in random directions, no longer able to coordinate their movements. Admiral Valtar, Chun said as human medical ships moved to assist damaged coalition vessels. This is just the beginning. We've broken one swarm, but there are more coming from the galactic core. What do you need from us? Trust, Chun replied. What you've seen today is how humans fight. We don't follow conventional tactics, because conventional tactics don't work against unconventional enemies. If you want our help against a greater threat, you'll have to accept that our methods will sometimes look wrong to you. Veltar looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They had watched humans do impossible things, seen tactics that defied everything they thought they knew about warfare. But they had also seen those tactics save millions of lives. Admiral Chun, Veltar said formally, on behalf of the Coalition Defense Force, I request that humanity consider rejoining Galactic Society as a full member. Chun's expression became serious. We'll consider it, Admiral. But first, let's finish dealing with the Galactic threat. After that, we can discuss what kind of galaxy we want to build together. 3 days after the victory at New Desha, the Coalition fleet received urgent reports from the Altair system. A massive Galactic swarm, larger than any seen before, was approaching the homeworld of the Altairan species. This swarm had learned from the defeat at New Desha and was adapting its tactics. Admiral Veltar stood in the conference room aboard the Harmony's Voice, studying holographic displays with Admiral Chun and the other Coalition commanders. The new Galactic force contained over 10,000 bioships, including several massive command vessels. They're spreading out their command structure, General Kortax observed. No single command bioship this time. If we use the same neurological virus, it won't affect the entire swarm. Admiral Chun nodded as she examined the tactical data. They're learning. That's what makes them dangerous. But learning also makes them predictable in new ways. Commander Yilseth, whose feathers were dulled with worry about her homeworld, spoke up. How long do we have? 18 hours until they reach Altair Prime, Chun replied. But we don't need 18 hours. We need 6. Why 6? Veltar asked. Because that's how long it takes to implement a package deal strategy, Chun said. It's something we developed during the AI war. When you can't win through superior firepower, You win by making victory more expensive than the enemy is willing to pay. High Counselor Nixara's tentacles moved nervously in her water-filled chamber. What does that mean exactly? Chun's expression became serious. It means we make them afraid to attack populated worlds. We teach them that every assault will cost them more than they gain. Before anyone could ask for details, alerts began sounding throughout the ship. The sensor officer's voice came over the communication system. Admiral, massive energy signatures detected. Human reinforcements are arriving. Through the viewports, Veltar could see space filling with human vessels. Not just the fortress ships they had seen before, but hundreds of smaller craft. Some looked like modified cargo haulers. Others appeared to be mining ships retrofitted with weapons. Many didn't look like military vessels at all. Admiral Chun, Veltar said carefully, "Are those civilian ships?" "Former civilians," Chun corrected. "During our AI war, we learned that every human vessel could become a weapon if necessary. Every crew member could become a soldier. It's not something we're proud of, but it's something we're very good at." "You're bringing non-military personnel into battle." "No," Chun said firmly. "These are all volunteers with military training. But their ships started as civilian vessels. We found that converted civilian craft often perform better than purpose-built warships because their crews thought creatively about their capabilities." Ensign Zeph, who had been quietly monitoring human communications, suddenly looked up with wide eyes. "Admiral, I'm detecting something unusual in the coordination signals. The human ships are communicating, but not like a fleet. More like a family," Chun finished. "Every human crew operates independently, but we all share the same goal. Protect the innocent. Stop the threat. Go home safe. Is that really enough?" Court Axe asked skeptically. "Unity of purpose against superior numbers?" "Watch and learn, General." The human fleet moved toward the approaching Zothic swarm with the same chaotic coordination they had, displayed at New Desha. But this time, Veltar began to notice patterns within the apparent randomness. Groups of ships would suddenly work together for specific tasks, then split apart to pursue individual objectives. A mining ship called the Deep Digger approached a cluster of Zothic bioships and deployed what looked like asteroid-cracking charges. But instead of trying to destroy the enemy vessels, the explosives created a field of space debris that disrupted the bioship's movement patterns. "Clever," Chun said, watching the same display. "Captain Morrison used to crack asteroids for a living. Now he's using those same skills to create obstacles for hive mind formations." A converted passenger liner, the Star Wanderer, flew directly into the middle of the Zaythic formation. Instead of firing weapons, it began broadcasting signals on thousands of different frequencies simultaneously. "What's that ship doing?" Veltar asked. "Electronic warfare," Chun explained. The Star Wanderer used to carry tourists between star systems. They know every communication frequency in Coalition space. Now they're using that knowledge to flood the Zothic with signal noise. Will that work? It's already working. Look at your displays. Veltar checked his tactical screens and saw that the Zothic bioships were beginning to move erratically. The signal flooding was interfering with their ability to coordinate their actions. But what impressed Veltar most was what happened next. A small human corvette called the Lucky 7 suffered massive damage from a bioship energy blast. Its engines were gone, its weapons were offline, and life support was failing. "They should abandon ship," Commander Thexara said. Instead, the Lucky 7 changed course and flew directly toward the largest Zothic command vessel. As it approached, the ship began broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Lucky 7. We're coming in fast and hot. Clear the area in 30 seconds. They're going to ram it, Veltar realized. Not just ram it, Chun corrected. Captain Rodriguez is a former demolition expert. She knows exactly how to turn a dying ship into the most effective weapon possible. The Lucky 7 struck the command bioship at full speed. The explosion that followed was far larger than it should have been from a simple collision. The entire command vessel was destroyed, taking with it the coordination node for that section of the swarm. How? Veltar asked. Overloaded reactor core. Shape charges placed at structural weak points in perfect timing, Chun said quietly. Captain Rodriguez and her crew died, but they saved thousands of lives in the entire crew. This pattern repeated throughout the battle. Human crews found creative ways to turn their ships into weapons when traditional combat failed. A cargo hauler used its loading bay to capture and redirect Zothic biomissiles. A research vessel deployed experimental technology that created localized gravity wells, trapping bioships in crushing force fields. What disturbed Veltar most was not the effectiveness of these tactics, but how calmly the humans implemented them. They discussed sacrificing their ships and their lives as if they were talking about the weather. Admiral Chun, he said during a brief lull in the fighting. Your people. They speak of death very easily. Not easily, Chun replied. But acceptance comes with experience. Every human crew knows that sometimes the only way to save others is to give up yourself. We don't like it, but we don't hesitate when it's necessary. That's what terrifies other species about you. Chun was quiet for a moment. Admiral, do you know what terrifies us about other species? What? That most of you have never had to make that choice. You've been peaceful for so long that you've forgotten what it cost to protect peace. The battle for Altair ended 6 hours later, just as Chun had predicted. The Zothic swarm was destroyed, but the cost had been high. 40 human vessels were lost, along with their crews. Yet the humans treated these losses as acceptable casualties in a larger war dot as rescue operations began. Veltar found himself understanding why the Coalition had quarantined humanity 50 years ago. It wasn't because humans were evil. It was because they thought about warfare in ways that challenged everything the Coalition believed about civilized behavior. Admiral